Good evening, dear viewers, and welcome to a new episode of Business Insider. World leaders are taking part in the latest annual UN climate meeting in Azerbaijan, in Baku, the capital. The 2024 UN Climate Change Conference, and are hoping to agree to action that would help rein in the rising risky global temperatures. A key issue also under discussion is how to get more cash to poorer countries who are not the main cause of pollution or global warming, to have them curb their planet warming gases and to cope with the growing impacts of climate change. We'll be talking COP29 in this episode, and it is to note that Premier Mustafa Madbouli, representing Egypt at the conference, delivered Egypt's speech earlier today, where he stressed that COP29 offers an opportunity to reaffirm all parties' commitments to fulfilling their pledges under the Framework Convention and the Paris Agreement, particularly in financing support for developing countries. Of course, Egypt playing a leading role in combating global warming, had a very successful hosting of COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in November of 2022. This edition of COP, the 29th, is lasting until the 22nd, started on the 11th and will last until the 22nd of November in Baku, Azerbaijan. We are delighted to have with us here in the studio Engineer Amany Shenawy. She's a chemical engineer, and she is also a member of civil society and international services organization. A very good evening to you, Engineer Amany. Happy to have you with us. I guess this topic lies within your interest and your specialty, really, in studies, being a chemical engineer. So allow us to have a frank discussion about the challenges the world is facing today. The year 2024 being the hottest year on record, a lot of hurricanes and floods everywhere. But first, allow us, Engineer Amany and dear viewers, to watch a report on the topic for tonight. Dear viewers, we'll be back and start our discussion here.
Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli has participated in the high-level segment of the 29th Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, COP29, in Baku, Azerbaijan, on behalf of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. During his participation, Madbouli attended a roundtable entitled Energy Enhancing Climate Change Mitigation Measures, where he intervened in this session in the presence of the Prime Minister of Belgium and Slovakia, the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, and the U.S. Climate Envoy. Madbouli said that Egypt had done its utmost efforts to provide the appropriate environment to implement its ambitious renewable energy goal, which is to reach 42% of the renewable energy mix by 2030. He continued that Egypt started by issuing a distinctive feed-in tariffs for electricity, through which it was able to attract a lot of private investments. He also said that Egypt also implemented a huge program to reform subsidies in order to increase the competitiveness of renewable energy. Then it transited to bidding system for various projects to further encourage private investments in renewable energy. Regarding his expectations from COP29 and how its outcome can help developing countries implement the mitigation elements of the global stocktake process and nationally determined contributions, Madbouli said he believes that without the required support for developing countries to implement nationally determined contributions, those goals would remain on paper and not be achieved. The Prime Minister continued that Egypt faces enormous difficulties in achieving its current conditional, nationally determined contribution, as it has not received the required support to implement it. He added that increasing ambition in considering the new climate change mitigation of the first global climate stocktake process while taking into account national circumstances, paths and approaches depends on achieving the current nationally determined contribution. On the sidelines of the COP29, Prime Minister Madbouli met with several heads of state, governments and international institutions, including Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the United Arab Emirates, Sabah Khalid Al Hamad Al Mubarak Al Sabah, the Crown Prince of Kuwait, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the President of Turkey, Shehbaz Sharif, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, the Chairman of the Sudanese Sovereignty Council, and Kristalina Georgieva, the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund. The official spokesperson for the cabinet, Mohammed Al-Humusani, said that both meetings witnessed discussions on ways of cooperation in several files, including files related to combating climate change and the green transformation, and the depth of political and economic relations between Egypt and the countries participating in the summit was emphasized. The meetings discussed the significance of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change Summit as a crucial change to the strengthening of the cooperation mechanisms among various nations with the aim of achieving sustainability and identifying the responsibilities of the conflicting parties in addressing climate change issues.
Welcome back, and thank you very much, Abir Hussein and Rasha Abdul Hamid, for this report. We are back here in the studio with chemical engineer Amany Shenawy, talking about COP29. So, Engineer Amany, some of the leaders of the world's largest economies are not attending this conference, including U.S. President Joe Biden, Chinese President Xi Jinping, and France's Emmanuel Macron, and also the European Commission President, Germany's Chancellor, India's Prime Minister. I don't know if the election of Donald Trump, the U.S. President-elect, would have any effects on the conference or the work there. You tell us, I mean, what do you see of this absence, and how will Mr. Trump's awaited arrival in the White House affect these efforts?
Well, we all know that during President Trump's presidential term, the last one, in 2017, he attended the COP at that year, and he wasn't. He delivered a message that he would like to know when could the United States pull out from the COP. We know that the United States is the second country. We don't want to say
biggest polluter,
but yes, emitting carbon in the environment.
China is the first?
China is the first, and USA is the second.
So, I mean, will the absence of some of these leaders or the fact that Trump is back, will it affect the ongoing efforts for years now to try to reach the goals to save Earth?
The participating countries are approximately, they are more than 150 countries. So the United States is a big country, yes, but I don't think that the efforts of the approximate 150 countries will stop.
Okay.
Countries will keep on trying to save the universe.
Now, between 40,000 and 50,000 delegates, that's what we understand, are attending COP29. It includes representatives, as you mentioned, from almost all UN member states, diplomats, climate scientists, trade union leaders, environmental activists, and you name it. What is the major risk we are facing right now
Okay, to start with the COP is the conference that happens every year in order to discuss the climate change, the global climate change. Why did the climate change? This is the main question that I like everybody to know. In order to have a solution, we should know the cause. The cause is us. We are polluting our Mother Earth since the Industrial Revolution. The first Industrial Revolution was 1760. So we are polluting our environment, our air, for a very long time, all of us. No one is accepted. So it needs time that we reduce the carbon and have a good carbon index in our countries. Each country has a carbon index according to the pollution at that place. You find at the country industrial places with high carbon dioxide emission, and other places on seashore and other places that are cleaner. We need time to replace the carbon emitting the fossil fuels and the carbon which is ignited all over the world. We replace it with renewable energy, solar energy, wind energy, hydrogen energy. So this is found in Egypt. There are other kind of energies. Nuclear energy is very clean, but it's already very expensive. We already are making wide steps in the nuclear, in our nuclear energy in Egypt.
Yes, we'll get to Egypt and talk about Egypt in specific. Now, the COP30 will be hosted by Brazil. And Brazil, we know, and President Lula da Silva is a climate change activist and is really for environmental protection. So I don't want to jump ahead, but should we expect more to come next year rather than this year, given the circumstances, the fact that world leaders are really preoccupied with the Middle East war, the Russia-Ukraine war, the economic crisis, the Trump election, you name it?
I hope in the next COP, the COP30, our Mother Earth is happier. Now, if we want to have a better carbon dioxide emission next year, we have to cooperate. Everyone has to cooperate. The solution comes from the cooperation of countries. And this is why in the Paris Treaty,
2015.
Yes. And in the COP every year, it is stressed that developing countries, in order to shift to clean energy, they need funding. And this funding, maybe it should be made through more fortunate countries, through banks, through whatever institute can give the countries, or as Prime Minister Madbouli said, those treaties will be kept ink on paper. So next year, what's going to happen? Where will be standing? This depends on our cooperation together. And I see this is a very good punishment for us, all of us. We have to cooperate in order to have a better world.
Yeah, of course we do.
We have to stop fighting. Yeah. We have to look for the environment, how we made it bad with our carbon emissions. So, and we have to cooperate in order to clean it.
I really like the way you put it when you said that this is the punishment for all of us. We have to cooperate, whether we like each other or not.
Yes.
Now, Egypt has been a key proponent of, finding finance for the poorer countries, the ones who are really paying the price of others' actions. And that was apparent in COP27 here in Sharm el-Sheikh 2 years ago, and the reparations file. Have we seen any progress in that file in the past 2 years?
The finance and the funding is the problem of all projects. So it is, we can say that it's up and down. It's not working as good as we wish. We wish that our goal is in the year 2050 that we have a clean environment. So it is, the target is high, and we are not progressing in the same rate that we should be progressing. But on the other hand, there is a lot of awareness about recycle, awareness about using biodegradable materials instead of using plastics and materials that pollute the environment more and more. So we are having awareness now, and we are most people use natural material instead of plastics. The problem is the main pollution comes from the fossil fuels, the emission of fossil fuels, and many people use fossil fuels. I want to give an example.
Yes, please.
For Egypt. We are using natural gas, but this year we had a problem with natural gas that was decreased, so we used fossil fuels. This was not expected, and this maybe made a little more pollution, but we're going to catch up and reuse our natural fuels. Also the other clean energies like the solar energy, hydrogen energy, and of course our nuclear energy.
Well, definitely the wars around us and around the globe are not helping in achieving progress. But I want to ask you about the 1.5 degrees Celsius target. The way we are moving today, are we going to achieve that? I mean, not to see the world temperatures not exceed 1.5 degrees Celsius in the upcoming years?
Hopefully we do, because the climate change and the carbon emissions are causing disastrous effects. We are having very high temperatures. We're having seashores that are land that is taken by the water, and land is getting less. We're having hurricanes. We're having a very cold climate in the winter. So I hope that we achieve our targets, even if we have a deadline which could be extended. But I hope that we have our target achieved in 2050. It has to be our cooperation that will do this.
Yeah, the punishment.
Yes, people should know that it is a responsibility. It is our responsibility towards the world we're living all in. We're living in a one world. And
to save planet Earth for future generations.
This is right.
Now, Engineer Amany, African countries, and Egypt has been a leading voice for African countries and developing countries in this field, want to see climate finance in total reach and exceed $1 billion a year. That's $1 trillion by the year. Well, yes, $1 trillion a year by 2030. I mean, is that possible? $1 trillion.
The renewable energy is very expensive to start. The startups are very expensive. After that, the running costs are less than the fossil fuels. So it is the first push that each country needs to establish its solar energy plants, its hydro energy plants, its nuclear plants even, or the wind plants. So it's the first start that needs those countries to be funded, and we have to cooperate to achieve
yes, we do,
the target.
we do, but there are some potential stumbling blocks here. I mean, we understand that China, for instance, has been exempted from contributing to the finance because it is being classified as a developing nation.
Yes.
China, the world's
Emitter.
second largest economy.
Yes.
And also the Gulf states, and they are polluters and they have money.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and the US now with Trump will say we're not going to finance. I don't know if this is going to happen, but anyway, there are potential stumbling blocks here.
This is true. Maybe we should have an initiative going in parallel with the COP in order to push the Paris Treaty to be executed. The Paris Treaty is signed in the year 2016. This is 8 years, and we are still not finding the finance for the developing country and the funding. It's the time that we have to push for a better performance and better cooperation. This won't be executed except if all the countries cooperate. So the countries have to cooperate in order to have a better environment and better circumstances. If you live one of the hurricanes or one of the very cold weather, this is not a good circumstances for living.
Absolutely, and some of the world's leading countries, including the US, including Europe, where we also saw, because of the financial crisis and the Russia-Ukraine war, some countries seemingly pulling back on their promises of cutting emission. They too are facing this. I mean, it's not just desertification in Africa or hot weather in Africa or in poor countries or in the south. The north is also exposed to hurricanes, flood, deadly ones.
This was our decision as humans. I don't say a certain country. As humans, to have an industry revolution, to use fossil fuels and to pollute the air with those fossil fuels. In a study that I was involved in, we asked the question, if we come back and we have the decision, would we do the industrial revolution and have all those carbon dioxide emitted in the air, or we can delay the use of cars, the aeroplanes, the rockets, the motors, and everything using the carbon dioxide.
And what do you think the answer is to this hypothetical question?
We are going to do the industrial revolution again and emit carbon again, but we have to take care that we stop in a certain limit and use electrical cars instead of cars using fossil fuels to reduce the use of carbon emitters. This is the problem, because when we pollute our air with carbon, a certain percentage of carbon, it is very hard to decrease it. It takes much longer time to decrease. So that's what we're facing now. But if
so you think we as mankind, I mean, would have changed something if we had believed, if you had really believed in the danger, maybe earlier, or sincerely believed in it, because there were always critics of there were those who never believed in the importance of fighting global warming and climate change. Yeah.
This is true. It's the fact, the awareness. The awareness when to stop. But we would have used fossil fuels and make cars and aeroplanes.
Yeah, well, for sure. Yeah, it's logical. logical
even
conclusion.
People traveling to the COP, they are traveling with planes and boats using fossil fuels.
Right.
So the problem is
but the awareness couldn't be bigger now. I mean, 2024, hottest year on record. We saw what happened with Helene in the U.S., the Hurricane Helene, Milton. We saw the floods in Spain. I mean, so everybody is being affected. The north, as I was saying, I mean, it's not just the south or the hot areas, but even, as you mentioned earlier, the summers are hotter and winters are colder, and oceans are seeing hotter water, and we're seeing, and the glaciers are melting down. So
this is true. It's a punishment that we're taking for polluting our Mother Earth. We have to be realistic. We emitted carbon, and we would do this if we come back, but we have to decrease the carbon content in the air, because this will affect a lot of living creatures, people, fish, animals, the plants, everything will be affected.
And we're still doing it because every time we face a crisis, say wars, a financial crisis on a global level here, I'm talking on a global scale, people, countries pull back on their commitments. And even those who are sincere and want to do it find themselves that they can't do it.
This is true.
Because the burden, the financial burden would be too much.
Even if we can't do it, I mean, I'm putting myself in place of the countries that committed. Even if they couldn't do it, they could help in another way, technically, technologically, giving those countries, the developing countries, technology that might help. We have a lot of students in the universities that are making a lot great papers on how to use the solar cells in a way or another, even if for charging your mobile with solar cells instead of using electricity that comes from fossil fuel. The most used kind of energy in the world is the electricity. And electricity until now depends on the fossil fuel, and this is carbon emitted.
Yes.
So,
Engineer Amany, Dr. Madbouli in his speech earlier today indicated that African countries already allocate up to 5% of their GDP to address climate change. I guess if we see the developed countries allocate up to 5% of their GDP to climate change issues, the world will be in a better place.
this makes me happy that our continent is that much aware of the climate change and how they want to participate with 5% of their GDP. And Egypt, of course, I believe that we need to cooperate in order to push and in order to have awareness among all countries to do the same as the African countries.
Now, let's focus on the Egyptian file now. And in Baku, Premier Madbouli noted that Egypt's long-term climate strategy, which sets environmental goals until the year 2050, alongside a sustainable development roadmap targeting 2030, is ongoing, and that Egypt will continue to do its best towards green energy and green investments.
Egypt has two stations, 2030 and 2050. On 2050, as the Paris Treaty was signed, and it's under the UNFCCC, the United Nations
framework.
convention
Yes, yeah.
of climate change. We have the target of until 2050 that we have a clean environment with carbon dioxide emission which is lower than 2% of the pre-industrial limits. So we are going to achieve this hopefully in Egypt in 2030, and by 2050 we go to the totally clean environment. So we have a lot of investments in our nuclear energy setting, in our solar energy, which is we have the target that the solar energy and the wind energy become 42% of our total energy use. Now we are...
That's 2030 or 2050?
2050.
Okay.
In 2030, hopefully, we get to 40% of the total used energy comes from solar and wind energy and hydro energy.
And where do we stand now, approximately?
Now we are 11.5. We are still...
It's a long way to go.
Yes. So we need to work environmentally a lot of environmental work and awarenesses too. In the coming years until 2030, we still have 6 years.
Yeah, well, definitely the dedication is there. I mean, Egypt is very dedicated, but there is a long way to go. I mean, the percentages, the gap in percentages, and this needs financing.
If you see what happened in Egypt in the last years, we are having a lot of developments. This is general, not environmental only. We are having roads that need a lot of years to be built. We established roads, we established a lot of transportation means that we achieved a lot in a short time. And I believe if we concentrated in the environmental file as Egypt, we are going to achieve this in a very short time too, and we are going to be a role model, as always.
Engineer Amany, I always go back to that point because it was also highlighted by the Prime Minister earlier today. Dr. Madbouli mentioned the success in COP27 and mentioned specifically when it came to mobilizing international support to establish the Loss and Damage Fund. But I want to know if you know, I mean, has there been any progress in that file, the Loss and Damage Fund? Yes, now, I mean, there seems to be an acceptance of the idea, which is already a big step, but are we seeing any money now trickling into...
the Loss and Damage file is due to extreme weather events. So as we've said, we have very hot weather, very cold weather, we have hurricanes and other weather events that are damaging. So in order to have the fund for the Loss and Damage file, we have to go to the Paris Treaty, Article number 6, which says we have to facilitate the international collaboration, and I put a line under collaboration, to lower carbon dioxide emissions. So what we have to do is to facilitate the international collaboration, because this loss and damage file, this loss and damage which is caused by the climate change is damaging for human beings, for animals, for plants. It damages our resources in all the countries. So collaboration is the word that is going to... We are a mean of facilitating. We are Egypt. We are a member of... we are a country that signed the treaty, the Paris Treaty.
A very active member.
Very active member.
Yeah, we have to mention, yes.
And we are trying to facilitate this because the funds should go to many countries. It's not only to us.
And Egypt, of course, always also brings up the water issue. And water issues, I mean, it's the same, isn't it? I mean, it's the same file, it's the same field. It has to do with climate change, of course, and fighting global warming. So the water file, what's there on the table on the water file? What can we do?
In the water file, maybe we'll talk about the water file out of the COP 29. We are having a problem with the water, that water is reducing, and maybe other countries are not
facing the same problem.
Yes, yeah. And other countries, maybe they don't obey the international laws about having water, as people are together on this earth, as we said. So it's not funny that someone takes all the water and say you don't have water. So I believe that due to the international laws, everything will come back and our portions won't be affected.
Engineer Amany, what is the biggest challenge? We are wrapping up here. We only have a few minutes left. There are a lot of challenges when it comes to fighting global warming.
This is true.
What is the biggest challenge? And let me just put some things that come to mind here. First of all, the fact that although this should be a priority issue for all the countries of the world, the North is different from the South when it comes to priorities, the rich and the poor, the developed and the developing. It seems there are different priorities here. That's one, the different priorities. Two, the wrangling, the political wrangling. No, you have to pay. No, you're China, you're not a developing country, and you emit so much carbon, so you have to pay. Now we have Mr. Trump back in the office on January 20th, so we don't know what he's going to do, and of course nobody can underestimate the huge influence the U.S. has on any global issue. I don't know, I mean, fighting time, even if we do our best, all of us, I mean, will we get there? I mean, so a lot of challenges, and definitely a lot of challenges that didn't come to my mind. You talk to us about what you think are the biggest challenges and the means to overcome them.
If we look for the target, what's our target? Is to the climate change, and we get back our climate to the normal that human beings can live safely and happily. Plants also, and animals, of course, all the living creatures. All this won't happen except if we reduce the carbon emission in the air. To reduce the carbon emission, we have to get rid of the fossil fuel that we are using since long ago, since the Industrial Revolution, and shift to clean energy. To do this, we need, each country needs a lot of money for the startup. The running costs are not costly, they are less than the fossil fuel cost. So to help each other, we are helping ourselves. Each country has to think that helping each other is helping myself. So all what's needed is to read the article number 6 in the Paris Treaty, and it's about collaboration. We have to facilitate collaboration. The developed country can reduce its carbon emission, because it's not about reducing the carbon emission in a certain country and the other is emitting. It's all the air, our air. So it's all about collaboration, and this is the punishment that we have to make sure that we do good to each other in order to have a clean air. It's
been a pleasure, really, Engineer Amany Shenawy, and very informative and insightful. Engineer Amany Shenawy, the chemical engineer and the member of civil society and the International Services Organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for being with us, and thank you, dear viewers, for watching this edition of Business Insider. I'm Hamad Abdurrahim, and this is a goodbye.